What is going on, guys? We have the patch 10.12 patch notes, and this is the big one because we all know set 3.5 is coming out, so we got a bunch of new champions, a bunch of champions are leaving, and a ton of changes in this game. And I'm on the League one. Let me go to the TFT one, and we'll take it from there. All right, sorry about that. We have the 10.12 patch notes here. Here's some of the highlights so far. We're getting Astros, Battlecast, Paragons. We get Bard, Cassiopeia, Nard, Illaoi, Janna, Kog'maw, Nautilus, Nocturne, Riven, Teemo, Urgot, Bane, Victor, Zed. If you guys watched my previous video, you guys will know a little bit about these guys already, but let's just get into the details. We got some new little legends. Ooh, I like this one on the top left the most, or maybe the bottom left. I'm not really a fan of the one on the top right, but we'll see what their animations are as the game goes on. As always, with the new set, we get a new battle pass, so we get a bunch of free stuff when we play the game. So I'm assuming we're going to be getting some new maps, some new eggs, all that fun stuff, and it'll probably unlocked once the patch goes live, which is tomorrow on Wednesday, the June 10th. So going into the new traits, we have Astro. Astro's reduced champion mana by 30. So this is going to be huge for Nard, Teemo, and I forgot who the other one is, but we'll find out soon enough. Battlecast, we have 2, 4, 6, 8 synergy, and Battlecast champions, upon dealing or taking 10 instances of damage, heal for a bunch of health, or deal damage to the nearest enemy if they're above half health. So this one's kind of good. It's kind of like an adaptive trait. So if you're low, you get healed. If you're high, you deal damage. So it's great for your tanks because your tanks get to heal health if they're low. And then your backline, such as like Kog'maw, gets to deal more damage because they'll likely be above half health. Next up, we have Paragon. Ally Star Guardian basic attacks are converted to true damage. All other ally basic attacks are converted to magic damage. Okay, so pretty much this is just like a little damage change trade. I think it's really good tech as like your 9th champion, add in a Janna, depending if you need that type of damage. But let's get into the champions. We have Nautilus starting off the game. We have him as Astro Vanguard. So tier 2 impact crater, Nautilus erupts the ground beneath its target, knocking them up and stunning them for a couple seconds and dealing some magic damage. So this is exactly like the old Nautilus from set 2, where he pretty much just shoots anchor and it just stuns a target, and enemies adjacent to the target receive half of this effect. So this is actually better than what he was before because he gets an AoE stun, whereas the old Nautilus, he only got one person stun. One thing to notice, though, is that he is tier 2, so he only costs 2 gold, whereas before he cost 3 gold. Next up, we have Bard. He's the other Astro champion we were looking for, and he is a Mystic at tier 3. Bard has a passive in which he gains 8, 20, or 90 mana each attack, but cannot gain mana against non-champions. His ability is Traveler's Call, and Bard spawns a Meep over his owner's bench, which can be sold for 1 experience. So Bard is going to be super good early game, weaker late game, and pretty much he's just going to be farming a lot of experience for your team. So if you ever need to get extra gold, say your team's very strong and maybe you have another Mystic in the game already, go ahead and play Bard, maybe farm up some gold, and he'll have some interesting plays there. Next up, we have Nard. This is my favorite champion of the set. Maybe it's actually Teemo. I don't really know. Oh, Teemo's actually the next one. But he is an Astro Brawler, and Nard's ability, he leaps towards his target, transforms into Mega Nard, and throws nearby enemies, dealing a bunch of magic damage and stunning them for 2 seconds. While in Mega Nard form, Nard's melee and gains a lot of health and a lot of attack damage. So he's going to be the superstar brawler now that Cho'Gath's out of the game, and pretty much he does a very similar role. He pretty much CCs a bunch of people, and he's a big giant tank, except Nard does more physical damage, whereas Cho'Gath probably did more magic or true damage. Next up, we have Teemo. Teemo is an Astro Sniper, and his ability is Satellite Traps. Teemo scatters 3 traps around the nearest enemy. When an enemy nears a trap or after 3 seconds, it explodes on nearby enemies, dealing a bunch of magic damage, knocking them down, and slowing them for 4 seconds. Next up, we have Illaoi, Battlecast, and Brawler. So this is the first Battlecast champion. He is a tier 1, and his ability is Tentacle Smash. Oh, so we have a bunch of new Brawlers now, so both Nard and Illaoi. So I think there are 5 Brawlers now, so it's going to be pretty easy to hit that 4 Brawler synergy if you want to play that comp. But his ability is Tentacle Smash. Illaoi slams a tentacle in a line in front of her, dealing a bunch of magic damage and stealing armor and magic resists from each target hit for 4 seconds. I like how they're giving a lot of utility to a 1-cost unit, because this right here means that he'll be playable in the late game, because he'll be able to make enemy tanks much weaker. Next up, we have Nocturne. Nocturne's a Battlecast Infiltrator, and he's a tier 1 as well, and his ability is Unspeakable Horror. Nocturne terrifies his target, causing them to be stunned with fear and dealing a bunch of magic damage over the duration. So it's just like a single target CC. He's going to be very useful as an infiltrator then. Say you need an extra infiltrator, he'll probably be the one being used because anyone that has a stun, they're going to be added as like a synergy bot later in the game if you really need that type of synergy. So that's going to be really strong. Next up, we have Kog'maw, Battlecast Blaster as a tier 2. I just noticed tier 1, tier 1, tier 2. Battlecast Hyperroll is probably going to be somewhat viable, if not maybe one of the main ways to play Battlecast, but we'll find out as the meta develops. But Kog'Maw, he has a barrage for 3 seconds. Kog'Maw gains infinite attack range and 80% attack speed, and his auto attacks deal % of their target's maximum health as magic damage. This seems really, really strong, and especially with the Blaster trait, this is going to probably wreck a lot of teams. I imagine he's going to be really good with a bunch of other on-hit items, and pretty much just be a complete monster for Battlecast. Next up, we have Cassiopeia. She is a Battlecast Mystic, and her ability is Noxious Blast. Cassiopeia launches her fangs at the nearest unpoisoned enemy, causing them to take a lot of magic. Wow, this is a lot of damage. I know it's over 12 seconds, but if you compare this damage to other champions, it is quite a handful. And she also reduces the effectiveness of shields of them by 50%. I wonder how many people have shields enough for this second effect to really take form. But it's a nice tech if people are going to be playing a lot of shields. Keep in mind, again, this is a ton of damage. So if she hits like maybe 2 people at level 1, she does 1400 damage. Like that's a crazy amount of damage at level 1 and only hitting 2 people. Next up, we have Victor. He is a Battlecast Sorcerer, and his ability is Death Ray, and he's a 4-cost unit. Victor burns a path between 2 enemies most distant from one another, initially dealing % of their max health as magic damage, and then 1 second later dealing magic damage in an explosion along the same path. So this is really good. He is both a tank shredder and pretty much just like a flat damage dealer, and from what I've been hearing, I haven't played the PvE, but I've heard Victor is a very strong carry, and with the Sorcerer buff, I wonder if he is enough just to like one-shot entire backlines. But next up, we have Urgot. He is a 5-cost for Battlecast, and his ability is Fear Beyond Death. Urgot fires a drill at the farthest enemy in his attack range, reeling them in and dealing 2,000 true damage repeatedly until they reach him and die. After his first successful cast, Urgot's mana is reduced by 10, 20, and 100 mana. Wow, he is one of the cooler concepts out of this set. I mean, he's like a reset machine for killing people. So I guess maybe one thing to do is build like a blue buff on him and then give him a bunch of tank items. Maybe that way he'll be able to survive long enough to kill a ton of enemies. We'll have to see what the best build for him is, though. Janna is a Star Guardian Paragon, and she is a 5-cost unit, and her ability is Howling Gale. She summons 5 tornadoes, which fly in a large cone. Tornadoes grant allies they pass through a lot of attack speed for 5 seconds, while knocking them up and stunning enemies for 1.5 seconds. So Janna is kind of like the late game CC bot. This is an insane ability. Like, helping your allies a ton and stunning pretty much the whole map. I mean, 5 tornadoes, that's a lot of tornadoes on like a TFT map where people can't like run around or hide behind walls or something like that. So she's probably very strong. Like, that's a lot of AoE CC, and not too many champions in this set have AoEs. I think definitely at 5 cost, she's something that you probably could play without any other synergies. Next up, we have Riven, who is a Chrono Blade Master, and her ability is Energy Slash. Riven dashes and shields herself for a bunch of health and then slashes forward, dealing a bunch of magic damage. Every third cast, Riven leaps into the air, launches a wave of energy that deals even more magic damage. So she's kind of like Yasuo from set 1, and she is a Chrono Blade Master, and this is probably going to be a pretty good synergy. She doesn't really make too much use of the Chrono buff, but if you add her with like Shen, you get like a free synergy there. And with Blade Masters, other Blade Masters can take advantage of the attack speed buff. But pretty much you'll want to build maybe something like a Luden's Ekko on her. Any AP item would be really good because she's just going to be casting constantly. Next up, we have Bane, who's a cybernetic sniper. So we have 2 more snipers in the game, Teemo and Bane. And Bane is a tier 3 unit, so this is different from how she was in set 2 and set 1. And her ability is Final Hour. Bane focuses for 10 seconds. That's actually quite a long time in TFT, tumbling away from her targets immediately and every third attack thereafter. Bane is invisible while tumbling, and attacks after tumbling deal a percentage of her attack damage. So this seems pretty strong. I wonder how it's going to work with the sniper trait. It depends what her range is, because maybe she has to walk up to people, then she tumbles away and maybe uses the sniper buff that way. But I'm excited to see how her invisibility works with the game, because there's a lot of glitchiness with a lot of these blink attacks, and with her tumble, we'll see how this actually plays out. In my experience in the past, whenever TFT introduced like any sort of dashes, any sort of like invisibility, like if you guys remember Kha'Zix from last set, there's always something weird going on there. So we'll see how that actually works in the game. Next up, we have Zed, who's a Rebel Infiltrator. We got 2 Infiltrators added, and they removed Kha'Zix. So I think we net gained 1 Infiltrator. And his ability is Content for the Weak. Every third attack, Zed steals a percentage of the target's attack damage and deals a bunch of magic damage as bonus damage. Pretty interesting as like an anti-carry, especially since Infiltrators jump to the back. If you manage to lock them onto like an enemy Jinx, that could be really critical in order to lower the enemy's attack output by quite a bit. So here we have the removals. No more Voids, no more Valkyrie. So Kha'Zix, Cho'Gath, Vel'Koz, Kai'Sa, Kayle, Misfortune, Sona, Lux, and Kassadin all removed. Oh, so they added in Zed as a Rebel and instead of Sona. And I guess that's why they added 2 Mystics, because they removed one of them. I'm going to miss Kassadin because he was like such a strong champion, and he was unique in a sense because he had a disarm, he had mana reave, and he was celestial. They didn't add a new celestial to compensate for that from what I remember. Yeah, none of these champions are celestials, so maybe celestial's a little harder to get. And they also removed Lilac Galaxy. A lot of people hated this galaxy because if you don't get one of the strong champions, you're pretty screwed for that game. So overall, this might be a good change in order to reduce the RNG a little bit. Next up, let's get into the rank changes. Galaxy's rank stage 2 will begin with this patch. Your rank has been soft reset down 1 tier. For example, if you're gold 2, you'll now be silver 2. If you are very good at the game and place in master or above, you'll be reset to diamond 4. So let me know what you guys think about this. Is a soft reset good? Would you rather have a hard reset? Would you rather have no reset at all? And let me know what tier you guys were before and drop down to in the comments below. You'll also get 5 provisional matches after the reset, meaning that you will not lose any LP for sub top 4 placements in your first 5 ranked games of the new stage. Keep in mind, like, a lot of these provisional matches and the way the ranking systems work, it makes it so that you don't feel bad if you lose, but losing affects your matchmaking rating, which is a hidden rating that Riot has that judges how good you are at the game. So you still want to win these games, even though you don't lose any LP for it. Because if you have a higher matchmaking rating, you're going to gain more LP for each win you have and lose less for each loss that you have. So matchmaking rating means a lot more than your LP until the end of the season when you're really trying to get that last rank that you want. So if you place gold or higher in Galaxy Stage 1, you'll receive a rank appropriate emote. If you place gold or higher in both stages, you'll receive a Victorious Little Legend. Victorious Little Legend rank rewards from the launch and Rise of Elements set will be arriving in your inventory soon. Oh, that's pretty cool. If you place gold or higher in those sets. So I'm excited to see that. They've been trying to tease like the rewards for all the previous sets for a while, and I guess they're finally coming. I guess like a Little Legend would be cool. Yeah, I don't know what else I could want. So I'll probably be using mine from before that we got from maybe like set 1. So system changes, we're not adding any new galaxies with this patch. Starting with patch 10.13, we plan to add 1 galaxy and remove 1 with every patch. What do you guys think they're going to remove in the next patch? Like, I think they're going to remove maybe, they're definitely going to keep Galactic Armory because I think those make for the most interesting games. They might remove Trade Sector or maybe Super Dense Galaxy next. That's what I'm thinking. And then maybe followed by Nicoverse. I think they're definitely going to keep Littler Legends and Medium Legends for a while because they kind of complement each other. Personally, I'm not a fan of either of these galaxies, though I do like how my Little Legend looks on the Littler Legend. It's like pretty funny because they run around so quickly. But what do you guys think? What do you think they're going to remove next? Miscellaneous, the number of tier 3 champions in the pool is now increased from 16 to 18, so it's going to be a little easier to compete with units if you're going for 3 cost carries. And next we have 1 star and tier 1 champions sell back for their full gold value. All other sell for 1 less gold than their full gold value. 2-star tier 3 champions sell value goes up from 5 gold to 8 gold, and 3-star tier 1 champions sell value would go from 5 to 9. I think I understood that. So essentially, I think 3 cost units now sell for 5 gold, and since 3 gold times 3 is 9 gold, it goes to 8. So I'm guessing if you have a 2-star 4 cost unit, which costs 12 gold to make, you'll now sell for 11. This change is pretty interesting as well. It's one of the bigger changes of the set, actually, despite being like probably one of the least highlighted changes so far, and it's like all the way in the miscellaneous section. But this has a lot of implications on how to play the game, because that means you can be a lot more flexible and buy a lot of other units that you normally wouldn't buy, and maybe sometimes you could transition into those other ones. We changed the level 4 drop chances. You can now get 3 cost champions a little more often than before, and you get less 1 cost champions. Level 9 drop rates change in the way that you get more 4 cost champions and less 3 cost champions. Kayn will no longer drop a spatula item if you have 0 of that trait on the board. So one interesting play with this change is if you don't want a certain spatula item, you might as well remove synergies temporarily for that stage and play other units instead in order to not get a spatula item if you don't want that particular item. Neeko's help now always works, even if there are no more copies in the bag. Extra champs generated is extra, and when sold or the player is defeated, does not go back into the champion pool or into the bag. I call it the champion pool, but I'm assuming they made this change because a lot of people thought the game was broken when they couldn't Neeko something that was completely taken already. So I guess long term it's good just so that there's less confusion on how Neeko's works, because I'm sure a lot of players don't even know that a champion pool even exists. If you guys are new here, champion pools pretty much mean that there are only a certain amount of each champion that you could get in the game. For example, up here we have only 18 tier 3 champions. So Shaco's a tier 3 unit. There are only 18 of them in the game. So if there are 2 3-star Shacos, each of them requires 9 Shacos, so that's 18. No one else can get a Shaco during that game, but now you can with Neeko's. So next up we have traits and trait adjustments. Blade Master is buffed at 4 Blade Master, I think that is, or is that 6? No, at 6 Blade Masters for a chance for 2 extra attacks. Brawler health and health decrease at 4 Brawler. So remember how I said before it's now much easier to get to 4 Brawler? Well, this is how they compensate for that. They nerf it by 50 health at 4 Brawler. Completely understandable. But I still think it's going to be pretty strong because Brawlers are so good in the mid game. Celestial is now only available via the Celestial Orb for 6 Celestial. Okay, they just changed the colors of the Celestial buff as well. And the healing is now increased at 4 Celestial and much higher at 6 Celestial. Interesting. I don't know why they didn't just make it 100, but whatever. Chrono added in 8 Chrono, which is now every 0.75 seconds you get an attack speed buff. That's going to be insane if you have 8 Chrono. It's just going to be funny to watch. I don't think it's going to be good, but it'll be funny to watch. Cybernetic, this definitely deserves a change because it's now much easier to get 6 Cybernetic. So they buffed 3 Cybernetic. I'm a little worried about that because Cybernetics are so strong early game, so I really don't know if you want to actually buff this because people are going to want to go for it even more now. And they nerfed the health of them at 6 Cybernetic, but buffed their attack damage. So it's not even a flat-out nerf. Aurelia is going to be super strong. Every attack damage that you add to Aurelia makes her stronger and stronger. And now since it's so easy to get to 6 Cybernetic, I'm expecting Cybernetics to be quite strong in the next patch. But maybe the Infinity Edge changes affect her a little bit. I only know about them because we read about them in the previous patch preview, but I guess we haven't gone over items yet, so we'll hit that later. Darkstar breakpoints is now 2468 instead of 369, and they adjusted the damage and ability power bonus accordingly for that. I think this is going to be slightly weaker than it was before, right? Yeah, because at 6, they now only get... no, never mind. It's going to be... It's tough to actually evaluate this. So 4 Darkstar is actually weaker than 3 Darkstar, which is kind of odd, right? But 6 is slightly stronger, so I guess it's compensated that way. No, 6 is weaker too. They're just both weaker. Okay, but they made a change here. Dark Stars now get their damage buffs whenever an ally dies. Okay, never mind. It is a lot stronger. See, we got to read the full changes before we can actually make a accurate prediction, because if any ally dies rather than Dark Star dies, they get a ton more bonus attack damage and ability power. So it's kind of like the light buff from set 2, except it is for every champion, not just light units or Dark Star units. So Infiltrators nerfed at 2 Infiltrator, nerfed at 3 Infiltrator, or at 4 Infiltrator, and the same at 6 Infiltrator. This makes a lot of sense. As I said before, they took out 1 Infiltrator in Kha'Zix, but added in 2 more, so it makes complete sense to nerf them slightly. Mystic's magic resistance increased at both 2 and 4 Mystic. I don't know how I feel about this change. I feel like Mystic has been very lackluster this set, but it wasn't because the trait is bad. I think it's just the carries in the game. They're mostly, before they were true damage with Void, and before they were a lot of attack damage with like Jinx, Jhin, those types of units, Aurelia. But since they removed Void, I don't think they needed to nerf Mystic, because most Sorcerer comps are going to be fully magic damage now, and then you'll just play Mystic, and maybe 35 is enough to negate all of that. Not negate all of it, but like be very helpful enough in order for you to win the game against them. Next up, we have Protector Shield amount of maximum health. It is now increased by 5% at 2 Protector, 10% at 4 Protector, and 15% at 6 Protector. Sniper lose 10 or 5% bonus damage per hex, and they added in a 4 Sniper trait, which is 18% bonus damage per hex. And again, they did this change because they added in two more snipers. So there's so many more snipers now. Getting 2 Sniper might be a little too easy. So doing this nerf makes complete sense. They removed 8 Sorcerer because it's no longer possible anymore, because they removed, I think, Lux. And Sorcerer bonus spell power is now same at 2 Sorcerer, and at 4 it goes from 40 to 45%, and the same at 6. So 4 Sorcerers buffed a tiny bit, so maybe E-Girls get a little stronger from that. And Star Guardian mana distribution got nerfed, never mind. I really need to read everything before I make a judgment. And Star Guardian now properly gives the correct amount of mana cast after the first one. This results in a buff for that trait. Okay, so maybe there was like a hidden bug that no one knew before. And maybe this is still a buff overall because they changed the second part. They don't give the numbers for this second change, so we don't actually know. But I'm guessing it's overall either the same or a buff. So they also added a 9 Star Guardian synergy, which is 55 mana. That's going to be insane if you get a lot of those spatulas. Vanguard Armor increased at level 4 from 250 to 300. This doesn't make any difference because either someone has Last Whisper or this extra 50 armor doesn't matter because it's already so much armor. I guess they added 6 Vanguard at 1,000 armor. All right. Yeah, this doesn't, it doesn't matter. I guess if people only do physical damage, which no comp does, it'll be good, but yeah. So mech pilot adjustments. Pilot's health on ejection is 100% to 35%. I like this change because the mech's damage, they should be damaged too. Mech health is 1,500 plus 45% of the pilots is changed to 2,200, and that's, I'm assuming, to compensate for this ejection nerf. And mech attack damage is now higher. Mech attack speed is now higher. Mech cleave damage is now slightly lower. Total mana slightly lower. Armor increase. Magic resist increase. And the ultimate damage is overall, it's looking like it's increased at lower levels. And the splash damage is also increased at lower levels. So overall, tons of buff for the mech pilots, except the fact that once they eject, they're very, very weak. And at 35% health, that makes a huge difference because maybe Fizz doesn't get his ultimate off. Maybe Rumble only stuns 1 person if they have Demo Spat, or sorry, the Demolitionist trait. They're removing Demo Spat, which we'll get into a bit later. Champion balance changes. Annie buffed 50 health. Annie's mana buffed by... So they removed the cap by 10 mana, but nerfed her by 5 mana. So overall, it's like a 5 mana buff, and she could get her second cast off maybe a tiny bit faster. And her blast damage got increased dramatically, and her shield is also much bigger. So overall, huge buff to her. This is great because the mech pilots are so useless when they're not in the mech pilots. So I want to see them in different comps too, or at least usable in different comps. Tier 3 champions, Ashe mana is now decreased, so this is a buff because her total mana got decreased, and her Crystal Arrow now does slightly less damage to compensate for that, and her missile speed is increased by 50%. So this means she'll miss a little less because if people reposition during a fight, they'll have less time to walk away from the targeted square. So that's great quality of life improvement for Ashe. Ezreal mana decreased by a lot, so he's going to be a lot stronger. I talked a little bit about this in the patch preview, so I won't go too much into it now, but I frankly love this change. Attack speed increase and EMP damage decrease, so I like this a lot because it makes him more utility oriented rather than damage. He was never really about the damage because getting the mana increase for the enemy team with his ability is huge. Jayce buffed a little bit by his health, and Nico's Pop Blossom damage nerfed. Rumble health increase, mana decrease, Flame Spitter damage increase, so huge buffs for Rumble. He's going to be playable when he's not in the mech, I'm guessing, if you have like Gangplank. Shaco attack damage increase, Shaco Deceive attack damage bonus increased a bunch. So if you guys haven't noticed, they removed Kai'Sa from Mech Infiltrator, and since she was the strongest champion in that comp, they got above everything else to compensate for that, and that's why we see these changes. So even if you think Mech is broken right now, they removed their main carry, so they're going to be a lot weaker without any of these changes that they just put in right now. Syndra mana decreased, so they moved her back to 60 mana, which is great because I love Star Guardians. You can't stack Seraph's Embrace on her anymore, so maybe they got hit too hard by that. She might need even more buffs than this, to be honest. But Syndra Unleashed power damage is now changed, and she does less damage at pretty much all levels except for level 1. And she now picks additional targets if she's dealing more than enough damage to kill her current target. So maybe this is enough, this change down here, to justify these nerfs. But with the blue buff change and Seraph's change that we'll get into later with the items, thinking about it again, maybe Star Guardian sorcerers aren't going to be that great because they can't constantly cast with like mana printer builds with double Seraphs on one of the Star Guardians. Next up, we have 4-cost champions. Fizz obviously is going to be buffed because of all the changes we said before. Jhin nerfed a tiny bit with his attack damage, base attack speed reduced now scales by star level. And Jinx rocket damage is now decreased at level 3. That doesn't matter. And Jinx no longer fires rockets with extra shots from her blaster trait. Whoa. This is a big change. She no longer gets to shoot rockets on blaster. I wonder what that means for her. That definitely makes her a lot weaker because that's a lot of damage she's missing out on. I think 2 blaster, you shoot 3 additional targets, so every 4 attacks, so she loses a lot, especially with the area of effect of the rockets. Like, wow, okay. Pretty big nerf to Jinx there. Aurelian Soul starting mana is now full and his attack speed's reduced. I don't know why this matters. He doesn't have any attacks, so this literally doesn't mean anything. Damage per fighter is decreased at level 1 and remains the same for level 2 and 3, and new fighters drain mana from their targets, and first cast launches 4 fighters, and each subsequent cast launch 2 additional ones. So over time, he's going to cast more and more. And taken together, he'll deal more damage the first 10 seconds of the fight, then fall behind from there relative to before patch 10.12. Okay, so I guess we summed up the changes there. We don't have to worry about that. But he does drain mana, which is going to be pretty interesting because it gives him more casts and it prevents the enemy player from casting their spells. So imagine like you have a Wukong in the front line and then he gets mana drained, and the later Wukong gets his ult off, the worse he is. So next we have Ekko. Starting mana increased from 50 to 80, so he's going to get his ultimate a lot more. Chrono Break damage is now decreased for every hit at level 1 and 2, but now he has a set amount of hits rather than just hitting every enemy once. So when he's in those like 1v2 scenarios, he's not going to be as bad, but overall it is a pretty big damage nerf, right? But I guess if he slows the attack speed of all enemy hits by 50% for 7 seconds, maybe that justifies the damage nerf, so he's more of a utility carry than like a damage carry. I'm guessing they're taking that angle. But Overall, I still think he's fine. This 50 to 80 mana is actually a huge difference. If you think about it, 30 mana is like having a Seraphs on him, and that's a lot of mana, so that's like a huge buff to him. You only really care about his first cast anyways because he's going to hit a bunch of enemies, slow their attack speed. So overall, I think this is a buff. Gangplank reduced the size of increased radius. Gangplank gains from his larger area upgrade, and his starting mana is now reduced from 100 to 70, but his total mana is now 160. So overall, huge nerfs for Gangplank, which is weird because they removed Demolitionist Spatula as well. So I'm not sure what direction they're going with this. He's also the only mercenary left, so maybe they'll add another one in the middle of the set. Tank changes, we have a bunch of armor and magic resistance. I'm assuming this is for most of the melee units, so we'll kind of skip through that. So if you guys haven't noticed the pattern yet, all the 1-cost units get 5 to 10, 5 armor and 10 magic resist. The tier 2 ones get 10 and 15, and then tier 3 they did it a little differently, and then tier 4 champions get 15 armor and 20 magic resist. That makes sense because it kind of scales with like their star level, so you always want the higher one out there if you want more tankiness. Next up, we have the item changes. So Bloodthirster Lifesteal increased 35% to 40%. Chalice of Harmony has been renamed and redesigned. It is now called Chalice of Power. Chalice of Power is tier and cloak, and at the start of combat, the holder and their left and right neighbors gain 30 ability power for 20 seconds. I wonder why they make it 20 seconds, because Zeke's Herald pretty much lasts the whole round. Deathblade is now 25 attack damage per stack. This is a great change because Deathblade was broken. Battlecast plating replaces Demolitionist charge, and that is made from Spatula and needlessly large rod. Battlecast plating just makes the champion a Battlecast unit. Giant Slayer effect change to deal 20% bonus true damage. If the enemy max health is over 1750, deal 80% true damage instead. So this is, again, still like a tank shredder build, but it's less effective against health stacking and more effective against resistance stacking. Hextech Gunblade is now 25% healing from all damage dealt, and now it's 35% healing from spell damage. No longer all damage dealt, only from spell damage, and 35%. I feel like this is going to be pretty weak because only spell damage is like a big difference from everything. And even this 10% buff, I don't think that's going to quite cut it. Infinity Edge is now 100% critical strike chance and 20% critical strike damage, and is now unique. I think this is like a pretty big buff to Infinity Edge, but someone can do the math in the comments below if they conclusively know whether this is better or worse. I think it's better because you get to take advantage of a lot of critical strike effects. But next up, we have Jeweled Gauntlets. Holders' spells can crit, and they now also gain a 20% critical strike damage buff. So that's pretty big for Jeweled Gauntlet. Hat was by far always better than Jeweled Gauntlet, and now this maybe puts it a little more equal in play. Luden's Ekko, star scaling removed, and now deals 200 magic damage per bounce. I love this change because now Luden's Lucian is going to be a thing again. There are a lot of other Luden's Ekko users, such as like Riven, and I'm super excited about that because this is one of my favorite items. And I love early game items similar to Luden's Ekko, and I'm glad they reverted it and brought it back to what it was before. Rapid Fire Cannon is now 200% range, and holders' attacks can't miss, so this is a great tech if you're facing a lot of dodge. I like this change a lot as well because now there's counterplay to dodge. Red buff used to be a 25% burn over 10 seconds. It's now a 10% burn over 4 seconds. So overall, it's around the same type of damage, but like it doesn't apply as often. So you need to reapply it. So I guess this is a good change because red buff definitely needs a nerf. Same with Morello's, but I don't see Morello's on this list. Blue buff replaces Seraph's Embrace, and it's pretty much the same thing, except you can't stack it. It is only a unique item. And Warmogs is now just a ton of health. So you get 1,000 health when you build Warmogs, and overall I think this is a nerf because this is pretty crappy of an item. I'm not gonna lie. Like, no one needs that much raw health, right? It doesn't do anything after a certain point. I kind of liked having the missing health regeneration because early game you could cheese a lot of wins in a 1v1 scenario. But yeah, I don't think this is going to be very strong. Hopefully they find something else to do with this item. Bug fixes, Super Mech Spell Shield should no longer fizzle if primary target dies. Aurelian Soul now stops moving immediately when Ekko ults. Aurelian Soul no longer gains mana from the Starship trait while Ekko is ulting and can no longer cast during Ekko ult. Aurelian Soul no longer spends its mana without launching fighters at the beginning of a round where all enemies are untargetable. Caitlyn's spell will no longer be interrupted if target enters stealth. Sniper trait no longer increases Runon's hurricane damage. This is a huge change because now Deathblade Runons on a sniper isn't a thing anymore. Fix a bug where Tear of the Goddess in a completed item mid-combat would grant the unit extra mana. So they actually removed mana bugging. I don't know how I feel about this. This is definitely just made to like make mobile players have more equal footing. But I kind of like being able to cheese it around with the mana bug. Because you could strategically plan it, so there is some strategy in play. It's not just like a broken mechanic. Fix some but I mean, it is a bug, right? We're just used to having it. So I guess from like a more neutral point of view, it is a good change because like it is a bug. But all right, fix some cases. I'm just gonna miss it. Fix some cases where Zig's spell bomb could disappear mid-flight. Yeah, I have noticed that some games. I'm like, wait, where'd it go? But I guess they fixed it. And fix a bug where you could only get 6 items from loot in extremely rare cases. Oh, wow, that sounds terrible. I guess those are the 10 item games that some people get. And added some extra range cushion to Luden's Ekko bounces to improve. Okay, I suggested this change, and I'm glad that they listened. I'm sure they had this idea themselves too, but with the increase of the map size in set 2, Luden's Ekko became a terrible item because the range on it was completely trash. But now they fixed it. I'm super glad about this. I cannot wait to play Luden's Ekko on the next patch. I don't even care if it sucks. I just want to play it. Fix a bug that allowed more than one Shroud of Stillness to be equipped on a champion through champion promotion. I didn't know this was a thing, but I'm glad they fixed it. So that's pretty much it for the patch. What do you guys think about this? I'm going to miss some things. I'm going to be excited for some new things. Obviously, Nard, Teemo, super excited about those. I'm going to miss Cho'Gath. He's pretty cool. I'm going to miss Kassadin. I'm going to miss Seraph's Embrace. I'm going to miss probably Chalice of Harmony. That was a pretty cool item and a cool concept. But excited for Riven, excited for Lucian with Ludens, and I just want to see where this patch takes us because obviously there are a ton of new changes and a lot of new comps will come into play. Paragon looks really cool as well. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this patch in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button as you know already, and maybe share it with a couple of your other friends who play TFT. But that's it from me. I'll be coming out with the tier list and meta snapshot on Friday, as usual. And we also got a special new episode of Team Up on Sunday, which I'm excited to release as well. So definitely look out for that in the coming week. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys next time. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And of course, smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.